Right, I want us to look at different types of factorization that we have in our algebra. Remember, I'm Mr. Spusiso Kanyile from Siafunda. We're dealing with grade 11 algebra this day. Let's look at this one. It can be divided into so many parts. There's common factor, there's difference of two squares, there's perfect square trinomial, quadratic trinomial, and sum and difference of two squares. So it's important that we know how to factorize this. Remember one thing and one thing only. Factorization is a reversal of multiplication. For example, if I need to factorize this, my eyes becomes the most important tool. Common factor. What is common? Something that is common, available in both terms. In this case, I've got two terms. What is the common factor between this term and this term? I don't think about it. I don't pray about it. I just use my eyes. What's the letters available in the first term and in the next term? There's 2 here, and there's also 2 there. So we call that a common factor. A factor that appears in both of these two terms. So how to factorize this one? We'll take this 2 outside. Then it will be, if we take 2 out, we're left with AB. You follow this sign as it is. It's 2 times what? That will give us 4. It is 2 times 2. When I multiply this, I should get that exactly as it is. If the question was saying multiply, maybe it gives me 2 into AB minus 2. So when I multiply, I will get exactly that value. So it's 2 times AB, it is 2AB, 2 times minus 2, it is minus 4. So when you multiply, you are getting rid of brackets, but when you factorize, you are bringing back brackets. The topic here will take factorize, find factors. These are the factors, but this is in factor form. If I multiply this, it will take me back to that form. So multiplication, its reversal is called factorization. Let's look at the second one now. If you look at the second one, it's called, these are the types called the difference of two squares. So you must be able to see what type of factorization we are dealing with. This is squared, and this is minus. This is also squared. This is squared as well. This is 2 squared, but it's written here as 4. So this is something squared, and that is something squared. And we subtract. Whenever we subtract, we call that a difference. When we add, we call that a sum. When we divide, we call that a quotient. And when we multiply, we call that a product. So what is this that we have here? It is a difference of 2 squares. This is something squared, and this is also something squared. Whenever you have something squared, from your grade 8, grade 9 factorization, it will teach you that this then will be equals to something. It brings back brackets when you factorize. Firstly, there is no common factor there, unlike in this one. There was 2, there was 2. That's the first thing that you need to do when you factorize. Take out a common factor. Because you might take out a common factor, then you'll see something else. In this particular case, we have a difference of 2 squares. All that we need to do in this particular case, what is the square root of this one? It is 2. Of this one, it is A. You follow the sign minus. The square root of that one will be B. Now, go on the other bracket. You write the same thing, except that the sign there will change into positive. So this will be 2A plus B. This is how you simply treat a difference of 2 squares. Remember this and one thing only. When I multiply this, we must get that as it is, as we did in this example this side. Let's try it. Suppose we've got 2A minus B. We multiply it by 2A plus B. Let's see if we are going to get that solution. Let's do it together. This then becomes, the question here will be saying multiply. That one says factorize. What is 2A times 2A? First term by the first term. This is 4A squared. Oops. This is 4A squared. Then second step, this and this one. It's 2A times B. It's going to be plus 2AB. Let's move on to this one now. Step number 3. This is step number 3. This is step number 2. Step number 3, it's minus B times 2A. It's going to be minus 2AB. Minus 2AB, right. Step number 4, the second term by the second term. It's minus B times positive B. It's going to be minus B squared. Let us go over these steps again. The first step says you multiply the first term by the first term. There are 2 terms this side, there are 2 terms that side. So term 1, term 2, term 1, term 2. So you multiply the first term by the first term. Step number 2, you multiply the first term by the second term to give us this solution. The first one gave us what? This times that, gave us 4a squared. This times that, it's 2ab, this one. And that's this negative times ab, step number 3. It's going to be 2 minus 2ab. Then the last step, it's going to be minus b times that. It's going to be minus b squared. Now, when we work this thing out, you'll always notice that 2ab subtract another 2ab, this will be 0. So this goes. What are we left with? We're left with 4a squared minus b squared. This is what we call the difference of 2 squares. When we multiply ifana exactly this and that, except that kuhluka plus no minus this side, it will give us a difference of 2 squares. So whenever we've got a difference of 2 squares, we must know that we're going to get exactly this. This 2 must be exactly the same, the difference of signs there. The other one, if this one is negative, this one will be positive. If this one is positive, if this one is negative, this one will be positive. The signs, they always be the vice versa of each other. That's what we call the difference of 2 squares. Now, I want us to move on to the third one called the perfect square trinomial. You also have these types of factorization, the perfect square trinomial. Remember that when we factorize, we bring in brackets. We're bringing back brackets. Let's see what we have here. Because it's a perfect square trinomial, we've got to have my 3x here and 3x. What is 3x times 3x? It is 9x squared. Right, let's move on. Factors of 4. Let me just take 2 and 2 and see what will I get. The middle term. Let's check it again. 3 times 3, it's 9x squared. 3 times 2, it is 6x. It will give us 6x. Look at this one. 2 times 3, it will also give us 6x. We want to get the middle term, which is minus 12. How can we get minus 12? If this is negative and this is negative, so that we'll get negative 12x. Right. So this value where I got 6x, this times that I got 6, it should be negative. And this one, when I got another 6, should also be negative. So this is what we are getting there. Taking this further, mathematically, we can clean this up to be, this is 3x minus 2 of the same thing. We've just done the same thing twice. So it is a perfect square trinomial. This trinomial will give us something which is called a perfect square, 3x minus 2 all squared. So we must be able to realize that when we factorize, we also come across this type of factorization. The last one is the one that we use most often, which is called the quadratic trinomial. You'll see this a lot in your examinations, in questions like solve for x. Remember, when we solve for x, it will have equals to 0 here. It is the same thing. Now, let's work this one out. Let us factorize this one. If this, we just open 2 sets of brackets. This is x, this is x. Factors of 3 that will give us 2 are 3 and 1. How do you get minus 2 from 3 and 1? This must be negative, that must be positive. So this is how we factorize this one. It will be x minus 3 into x plus 1. Suppose this was a problem like this, solve for x. How does this factorization, where does it help us? When you solve problems like solve for x, if x squared minus 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. So that's why factorization, your factorization come in handy. The exam problem will be a problem like this one. Say solve for x if we've got this situation. So what do we do here? You apply your factorization skills. So how does that help me? I will open my 2 sets of brackets. I say this is equal to 0. I will have my x and x. Factors of 3, that will give us 2. You can write them next to you, 3. So it's 3 times 1, that will give us 3. There are no any other factors. So 1 must be 3, the other one must be 1. So how do we get this minus 2? If I'm adding this, how do I get minus 2? This must be negative, this must be positive, so that I get minus 2. So wherever I got 3, I must have a negative sign. Wherever I've got 1, I must have a positive sign. Remember, this case now I'm solving for x. How do I find my x value there? I'm multiplying 2 values. I'm multiplying 2 numbers, and I'm getting 0. This number times this number is 0. So one of these numbers must be 0. Whenever I'm multiplying a number times another number equal to 0, It means one of these numbers must be 0. It might be this one, which is 0, or that one. Either of the two can be 0. So we are saying we're multiplying two numbers here. So one of them must be 0. It can be x minus 3, that is 0, or it can be x plus 1, which is 0. One of the two can be 0. So how do you solve this thing further? You take this 3 that side, so our x will then be equals to 3, or x will be equals to minus 1. This is how our factorization help us in doing our problems during our tests and our examinations. I want us to look at this last form called the sum and difference of cubes. This becomes important as well when you do your calculus and any other sections. Look at this one. Okay, this is cubed. This is also cubed. This is also cubed. So this is a difference of two cubes. So how do we treat this? We factorize. Number one, you look for the cube root of this value. What is the cube root of a cubed? It is equals to a. Now it's a times a that gives us a cubed. What number will we multiply by itself 3 times that will give us 27? Sifuna inumber esithi masimultiply ngayo kathathu isikipele 27. It is 3 times 3 times 3 that will give us 27. So the cube root of 27 is 3. You follow the sign as it is 3. What is the cube root of b cubed? Iphinda ivele esithi masimultiply ngayo kathathu isikipele b cubed. B times b times b. So the cube root of b cubed, it is b. Once you find the first bracket, you can work out the next bracket. So how do you work out the next bracket here? You multiply this term by this term. This is very important. You multiply this term by this term. What do I get? I get a squared. Such that when I multiply this and that, I will get that as it is. Remember, when I multiply this, I should get that as exactly as it is. So how do I find the other one? I said the first one, you say a times a, we got a squared. The next one, you say a times 3b. Step number 2, you multiply a times, let's follow the steps first before we do it. The first step, you multiply the first term by the first term. You got a squared. The next one, you multiply this by that one, the second term. Then you change the sign. The last one, you multiply the second term by the second term. Let's do this thing again. With first step, a times a squared. Step number 2, a times minus 3b. It will give us minus 3ab. Minus, change sign, it will be plus 3ab. Then the last one, you say minus 3ab times minus 3ab. It will give us plus 3 times 3, it is 9. B times b, it is b squared. So this is how you factorize the sum or difference of cubed. It might be plus here, it might be minus. The key here is a times a squared. A times minus 3b, minus 3ab. The trick here, you've got to change that sign when you write it here to be plus. Then minus 3b times minus 3b, it will be, give us plus 9b squared. How do you get that one? Look here. If I have this expression, if I've got this expression, let's look at it. If I've got a, if the instruction will say multiply, or I'll just take anyone. Let me just take x plus 1. X cubed plus 1. Okay, let me take x plus 1 into x squared. X times x is x squared, x times 1, it's x change sign, it's minus x. 1 times 1, it's plus 1. Let me just take this expression and multiply this and see if am I going to get the difference of 2 cubed. There's something that will guide me. Let's work it out first. So what is this times that? It is x cubed. In fact, I'm taking this term and multiplying with each of those when we multiply. So I know that the answer that I must get here, it should be x cubed plus 1. Let's work it out. So it's x, this times that, it is x cubed. This times the second one, it will be minus x squared. This times the third one, it will be plus x. Right, that's what we get from multiplying each term with x. Let's us multiply it with 1 now. So it's 1 times x. It's going to give us plus x squared. This times that, it will give us minus x. This times that, it will give us plus 1. Let's see our solution here. So what do we have here? This is the only cubed that we have. So it is x cubed This is squared, this is squared. X squared minus x squared, this goes, it's 0. What is x minus x? That goes, it is 0. So it's x cubed, in fact, not x squared. It's x cubed plus 1. So this is the sum of 2 cubes. Remember, this is also 1 cubed. So it is the sum of 2 cubes, because 1 times 1 times 1, it will give us 1. So this is also the same as 1 cubed. It is the same thing here. When you multiply this by that, multiply this by that, multiply this by that, continue, multiply this by that, multiply this by that, multiply this by that, it will give us the difference of 2 cubes. So how do you check it? This is how you check it. If it will be the sum or difference of 2 cubes. You say x times x, we got this one. X times 1, it's x, change sign, minus x. 1 times 1, it's 1. If it comes in this form, then you know that it will be a sum or difference of 2 cubes. Thank you.